To welcome everybody to the 2014 Convocation ceremony. And to start things off, it's my honor and my privilege to present to you Mr. Peter May, the Chairman of the Boards of Trustees of the Mount Sinai Health System.
Thanks, Dennis. Good afternoon, everybody. This is always a very important event for us as we recognize some of our great scientists and leaders. So on behalf of the Board of Trustees, I'm pleased to welcome you to what's now the 29th Convocation ceremony at the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai. Groundbreaking science and state-of-the-art patient care have always been hallmarks of Mount Sinai. And yet our institution has really never been better positioned to drive scientific discovery and impact the delivery of health care than it is today. Through last year's combination, it's just about a year ago, not even, that we combined with the Continuum Health Partners, Mount Sinai Health System has become one of the largest not-for-profit, multi-site healthcare systems in the country. And the Icahn School of Medicine is its academic cornerstone, the sole medical school partnering with 7 member hospitals throughout the city. Designed to increase and streamline access to primary care as well as the full spectrum of specialty services and subspecialty services, Mount Sinai Health System presents unparalleled opportunities for our school, including exposure to a greater and more diverse patient population than ever before. As a result, we'll be able to dramatically expand our clinical trial footprint while providing the most cutting-edge care for patients with a great range of medical conditions. Moreover, the health system positions Mount Sinai as a leader in the ongoing shift towards population management, an approach to healthcare delivery that emphasizes managing patients' care to keep them healthy, rather than treating them only when they're sick. The health system has also brought an infusion of new creativity and talent as the prestigious physicians and scientists and of the member hospitals have joined our school's faculty roster. Likewise, medical students, residents, and fellows now have the opportunity to train at venues throughout the entire health system, where they'll gain invaluable experience working with a wide range of patients throughout New York City. Opportunities for collaboration and for discovery abound. The physician scientists we honor today are at the forefront of Mount Sinai's effort to improve health care for the diverse communities that we serve. They are investigators and innovators, surgeons and caregivers, whose daily work advances the understanding and practice of medicine. Today's honorees include world-renowned immunobiologists, preeminent surgeons and physicians, and groundbreaking scientists in the fields of virology and neuroscience. All are among the most accomplished experts and pioneers in their fields. Together, their outstanding contribution to medicine and medical science exemplify Mount Sinai's enduring commitment to delivering patient care informed by the most advanced research. Our patients rely on the clinical and scientific breakthroughs generated by our extraordinary faculty. Likewise, our faculty rely on the partnership and vision of our most devoted supporters. Indeed, their unwavering commitment to Mount Sinai has sustained and expanded our research for generations. Today, we commend not only those whose endeavors transform the practice of medicine, but also the many philanthropists whose vision and generosity have championed this vital work. It's our privilege to have several of our most valued donors and supporters here with us today to commemorate the outstanding achievements of our faculty and to look ahead at the future advances their generosity will make possible. I'm very pleased to welcome Ms. A. Kim and her son, Dr. William Kim, who are with us here. Mrs. Kim generously established the Young Hun Kim MD Chair in Urology in honor of her late husband, a distinguished urologist and an alumnus of the Mount Sinai Hospital. The Kim family's generosity will ensure that Dr. Kim's abiding commitment to the field of urology and the legacy of his work will continue to improve the lives of patients and the practice of medicine in perpetuity. It's also our pleasure to welcome Bradley H. Jack. Mr. Jack led a distinguished career with Lehman Brothers for nearly 2 decades before retiring in 2006 and forming BHJ Industries. A member of Mount Sinai's Surgical Advisory Board, Mr. Jack was inspired by the care he received from Mount Sinai's outstanding physicians and surgeons, and he has established the Bradley H. Jack Professor of Surgery. His exceptional gift will further advance surgical and clinical innovation at Mount Sinai. Our institution is extremely fortunate to have the support of such extraordinary benefactors as we strive to accelerate the pace of research, breakthroughs, and translate these into treatments that save and improve lives. We will continue to depend on the commitment of our community. So together we will work to secure a brighter and healthier future. And on behalf of the board, I want to thank our donors and congratulate all of our honorees today for work that's well-deserved, for honors that are well-deserved, and the gifts are most appreciative. Mount Sinai's history is a history of philanthropy, and without your philanthropy, we wouldn't be here and have the kind of success we have. So thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Traditionally, I take the convocation as an opportunity to provide to all of you a state of the school. So over the next 20 or 30 minutes, I'm going to review how we're doing and what our challenges are going forward. There's going to be a lot of data, so I'm going to go through the slides quickly, and it'll be on our website on the Dean's page for those of you who are really interested in the details of how we're doing. If we can lower the lights a little bit. So as Peter mentioned, this is perhaps the most transformative time in the history of Mount Sinai for many different reasons. One, of course, is the merger that took place in October of 2013 that resulted in the Mount Sinai Health System being one of the largest healthcare systems in the United States, the largest private employer in New York City. And there are several unique aspects of the health system, and one that relates most dramatically to the School of Medicine is that in contrast to most other large healthcare systems in the United States, the foundation or the platform of our health system is one school of medicine, and that's the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai. Other major healthcare systems either are not associated with one of the top medical schools in the country, or they're associated with more than one. So this gives us a unique opportunity to develop a truly integrated healthcare system, providing the best care to literally millions of patients. And it also provides a platform for our medical students to literally get exposed to every disease known to man, different ethnic groups in our hospitals. Patients from over 40 countries come to receive care. We've got translators at many of our hospitals to help our medical students and physicians interact with our patients. And the size of the healthcare system gives us the opportunity to do the kind of research, translational research and clinical research, that can change the practice of medicine. So it provides us with a unique platform, but with that comes responsibility, an enormous responsibility to do right by science and do right by our patients. So what we have worked to do over the last several years is to support a culture of innovation, to provide the kind of resources to our students, to our physicians, to our scientists to do their best work. And innovation, as probably Mr. Jack knows and others in other fields, requires us to challenge tradition, to challenge the usual way of doing things, to find a better path going forward. And I recommend an article that was in the Harvard Business Review in June that talks about the importance, on one hand, to be clear about the mission of an institution like ours, which is, as I mentioned, great research leading to great clinical care, and also to provide an environment where it's okay to disagree. It's okay to debate. But we seek a resolution through that debate and disagreements to make sure we've looked at every possible way going forward and then commit to it. We have to do several things to foster innovation, and we're working hard at it. And one is to create opportunities, to provide the kind of infrastructure and resources that maximize innovation and entrepreneurship. We've got to reward innovation, which means we have to tolerate failure. If we are not failing in doing our science and pushing the envelope to discover new treatments, we're not trying hard enough. Being safe means that you're probably not going to break new ground. So we have to tolerate failure and support entrepreneurship and innovation at the same time. And by doing that, we will create the next generation of leaders. We have leaders up on the stage here today, as you'll hear, and what's behind them and who they're training are the next generation of leaders that will stand on their shoulders. So what have we done over the past year? I'll give you some examples. To create more opportunities, we're developing collaborations with other institutions that synergize with our strengths. One example is that we have developed an affiliation with National Jewish Healthcare in Denver, which is one of the leading respiratory clinical care and research institutions in the United States. We've affiliated with the New York Academy of Medicine as two examples, and we are now even talking to the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia about developing a collaboration in providing the best care for our children and families in New York City, but that's still an ongoing discussion. We are all about diversity. Diversity in providing opportunities for those who may grow up in an environment that is less fortunate than most. Diversity of thought, diversity of working together to provide opportunities for all. And these are some examples of how we're trying to help our local community in terms of young people see the opportunities through internships and other experiences with our scientists and our physicians to see that they can achieve what's based on their ability and not based on the resources that they may have available to them in the beginning of their life. We are working to get the word out about what's happening here at Mount Sinai, leading the conversations on how healthcare needs to change and what kind of models of healthcare delivery are going to be best for providing outstanding healthcare at lower cost to large populations of patients in an urban setting. So, for example, we have taken a leadership role at the Aspen Ideas Festival. We are developing now a series of books in collaboration with Wiley, over there on the bottom left, that are Mount Sinai guides to different branches of medicine. The first book that came out is the Mount Sinai Guide in Hepatology. One that's coming out very shortly is our guide to GI disease, and then there'll be psychiatry, neurology, et cetera, that will essentially brand Mount Sinai as being the place to go to receive expert advice on how to provide the best care. And we are working to create the right kind of organizational framework now that we're a very large healthcare system to deliver the care that is our aspiration. So as an example, over the course of this year, and this will continue over the next several years, we are creating clinical institutes that are multidisciplinary, break down silos in how physicians and other caregivers work together to provide the best care. So, for example, this year we've created the Institute for Advanced Medicine to provide the best care for patients with HIV. We've created a new research institute on healthcare delivery science. We are forming a clinical diabetes institute, branching out from the Friedman Diabetes Institute at Beth Israel to provide outstanding care throughout the healthcare system for diabetes. We formed a primary care institute to be a model for delivering care at a very primary level to promote wellness and prevent disease. And through a generous gift from the Merkin family, we have created the Merkin Family Clinical Neuroscience Institute that integrates the kind of care you get from neurologists, neurosurgeons, and other specialties. This is just the beginning, and this just happened in the last year. And in addition, we've been in recruitment mode, as we have been over the last 10 years, including new leaders that you're going to hear about today and others that range from ophthalmology to rheumatology to urology and so on and so forth. We've also expanded our reach. You know, as Thomas Friedman said, the world is flat, and we feel a responsibility to export our expertise to the underserved areas of the world. Mike Marin just came back from Uganda, as an example, where he's working to help promote healthcare in that country. So to do that, we have been enhancing our leadership role globally. Through a generous gift of the Arnhold family, we have established the Arnhold Global Health Institute. It has been under the leadership of Phil Landrigan. We are now recruiting a new leader for that institute. Just over the past year, we've had 50 students and 40 residents go on public health and research projects to over 25 countries around the planet. We've established a new journal. We revamped the Mount Sinai Journal of Medicine and relaunched it as the Annuals of Global Health with a focus on public health and policy. There is some evidence that we've been successful in promoting Mount Sinai as a landmark place for innovation. I'd like to say that we are a Silicon Valley medical school, but I got to change that because I want New York City to be known for innovation in healthcare, and we're going to lead the way in innovation in that sense. Recently, Fast Company, the magazine, named Mount Sinai as one of the 10 most innovative companies in the world. We only ranked number 5. We hope to improve that. And this is not ranking medical schools. This is ranking companies in terms of the kind of culture that they foster and facilitate in terms of being innovative. We've been investing a lot in our resources to enable our scientists to make discoveries that lead to new treatments, new medicines, new devices, new ways of developing novel approaches to surgery. Now, we are fostering the development of biotech companies that come out of Mount Sinai Science. This is just a recent example of a company that's emerged out of Mount Sinai Science called Dual Therapeutics. It was highlighted in the last month in Cranes as one of the 6 biotechs to watch in New York City, based on some of the work here by Michael Omar, one of our medicinal chemists here at Mount Sinai. I could go on about the accomplishments over the past year of our scientists and our physicians, and these are just some of the many examples that range from great basic science to Mount Sinai receiving an award from the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services for healthcare innovation. So we range from research on the single cell to doing research on how to deliver healthcare to impoverished areas in our cities. So if you always do what you always did, you always get what you always got. And so this is not our motto. You know, our motto is to challenge tradition, look at the obstacles and overcome them, and try to think differently as we move forward. So let me go over some of the data that supports how we're doing. As it relates to quality, in the past year, we had 263 doctors in New York's magazine for Best Doctors. This represents 22% of all the doctors that are listed, and we are featured in 59 out of 63 specialties. The medical school currently ranks 18th in U.S. News and World Report. In our NIH funding, we've had a dramatic increase in our NIH funding in the last year. As many of you know, the NIH budget has been flat in terms of absolute dollars and has been decreasing over the last 5 years plus in the dollars in terms of control for inflation. From 2013, where we had $214 million in NIH funding, the fiscal year closes tomorrow, and we calculate that we have now $247 million. So that's an increase of over 15% in a budget climate at NIH that is very tough. And the credit goes to our scientists who are competing with the very best in the country to get NIH funding. And that's actually reflected in the number right here, where we rank 4th in the United States in research dollars per scientist. As part of the merger with the former Continuum healthcare system, the size of our faculty over the last year has increased dramatically. And this slide indicates how much we have expanded. So, currently, when we add up the number of full-time faculty members, part-time and voluntary faculty members, we have over 5,500 physicians, primarily, who are members of our faculty. That makes us one of the largest, if not the largest, medical school in the United States. Over the past year, we've appointed over 900 Mount Sinai Health System physicians to the School of Medicine. And there, a lot of credit goes to our chairs and to Leslie Schneier and other of our associate deans for making the transition from the other medical schools that were affiliated with the former Continuum Health System, and that is Columbia, New York Medical College, and Albert Einstein College of Medicine, to transition to our School of Medicine. How are we doing in terms of medical education? Here, David Muller and his team have had another very strong year. Most notably, we inaugurated our FlexMed, we recruited our first FlexMed class. As many of you know, for over 25 years, we were known for admitting about a quarter of our medical student body to our humanities and medicine program. That was for students who majored in the humanities in college. We accepted these students early. They didn't have to take the MCAT, and it allowed them to have a much more flexible and rewarding college career before they entered Mount Sinai Medical School. And we attracted a certain kind of student through this program that was very much devoted to serving the underserved. That program worked spectacularly well, and we decided to expand it to the FlexMed program, where it's still an early admission program, but is also designed to attract and recruit students who are majoring in the hard sciences, quote, physics majors, math majors, computer science majors, and chemistry majors. Students who major in those disciplines traditionally do not go to medical school because it is almost impossible to major in those disciplines and still take the requirements, the pre-med requirements, and still study for the MCAT, which now takes about a year to study for. So we inaugurated the FlexMed program as an early admission program for a wide range of undergraduate majors. We accepted 51 students out of 700 applicants, and almost every one of the applicants was spectacular. It actually it makes me wonder whether I would have gotten into the medical school. We accepted 51, and 51 accepted. So we may have some dropout over the next 2 years, but it gives an indication of how excited these students are to come to Mount Sinai. They come from the best schools in America, and they range from being a humanities major to being a molecular biology major, a physics major, a chemistry major, and so forth. These are the qualifications of the medical student class that we just enrolled and are now taking classes. You can see that they are a terrific group in terms of the usual metrics, but on top of that, they were really fine young people that we're very proud to have come to Mount Sinai. You can see out of the 140 students that started, they come from 59 different undergraduate schools. So we're getting students come from all over the country, many different undergraduate schools, ranging from MIT and Caltech to undergraduate colleges that are more focused on the humanities. We enrolled the usual size of the MD PhD program, again, a very spectacular group of students. Another big change is the size of our graduate medical education program as a result of the merger. Now, all of the training programs associated with the former Continuum hospitals, Beth Israel, Roosevelt Hospital, St. Luke's Hospital, all those residency programs are now sponsored by the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai. That makes us the largest graduate medical education program in the United States. We are currently undertaking a strategic planning process led by Michael Lightman, who was head of the training program in surgery at Beth Israel, to look at all the training programs, how they're doing, which programs should remain separate, which programs should become integrated in the spirit of improving quality and competitiveness. And that'll be a major focus of ours over the next year. In terms of our graduate school, as many of you know, we admit about 30 to 40 PhD students per year. We also have 600 to 700 postdoctoral students. It's a very important part of the programs at Mount Sinai. It was another very strong year. Notably, we inaugurated our master's program in healthcare delivery science, one of the first 10 in the United States. This year we'll be starting another master's program in translational bioinformatics to take advantage of the revolution in big data analytics and how it might relate to delivery of medical care. We are also undertaking a strategic planning process for our graduate school. If you look at the training of PhD students in the biomedical sciences, it literally has not changed over the last 50 years. It's been very traditional in terms of core curriculum, thesis development, how long it takes to do the thesis, how long it takes to get your PhD. So I've asked our graduate school leadership to take another look on how we train our graduate students. I said, have nothing be sacrosanct. Let's take a look at how we're doing things, see if there are things that we can do better to attract the very best students, look at the current structure of the training program, put everything back on the table. So we're in the middle of that process, and we'll report the outcomes over the next 6 months. The PhD student class that we admitted this year, 36 students, again, very strong group, Caltech, Cooper Union, Cornell, Hopkins, MIT, et cetera. We also formed the Mount Sinai Institute of Technology under the leadership of Jeff Smith. We got a $5 million grant from the New York Economic Development Corporation to inaugurate this institute. And Jeff has already begun to work with a lot of our scientists, a lot of our physicians, to challenge them to be creative, to develop new approaches. And we're about to open a prototype facility with the best in 3D printing to work with our surgeons and our variety of other physicians and scientists to work to develop new devices and other discoveries. We've expanded the size of our tech transfer office in the past year to be able to maximize the commercialization of Mount Sinai science. This compares how well we did in 2012 versus 2013. You can see that the number of enabling agreements has almost doubled. The number of new licenses and options have increased. The number of IP disclosures has gone from 69 to 104. So we are moving in the right direction with a lot of exciting science that is on the cusp of commercialization. We've also invested a lot in scientific computing. A shout out goes to Patricia Kovich, our Associate Dean for High Performance Computing, in getting a $2 million grant to enhance our computational capacity. And we now have one of the largest computing systems of any medical school in the country to take advantage of the large amounts of data coming out of our healthcare system and our research in genomics and structural and chemical biology and other disciplines. In terms of research funding, I mentioned that we now rank 4th in the country in research dollars per scientist. We get this data anonymously, but there we are in the lower right corner. Traditionally, we have ranked number 1 in research dollars per square foot, which I did not want to be number one because that means that we are too dense and too crowded. With the opening of the Hess building, we are now number 12, which is, I think, about right, that we are using our space effectively, but we're making sure that we're giving the scientists the amount of research space that they need to conduct their science based on their funding. Some of the things that we will be investing in over the coming year includes further investment in our Experimental Therapeutics Institute to maximize therapeutic discovery, enhancing proteomics and our monoclonal antibody facility, to enhance our novel technologies regarding vaccine development, cellular and gene therapies. We're known for systems biomedicine. We've gotten some major grants from the NIH, totaling about $5 million per year in the last year. We're going to continue to invest in that. We are enhancing our molecular and genetic diagnostics under the leadership of Eric Schatt, Andrew Kasarkis, Carlos Cordon-Cardo, including opening a new testing laboratory in Connecticut very recently. One of the reasons that we opened it in Connecticut is that it's $12 per square foot. And the regulatory environment is much more supportive in terms of creating a molecular diagnostic program that will have nationwide implications. And these are some of the other areas that we'll be investing in over the coming year. Over the coming year, there'll be a lot of work that will continue in the integration of our healthcare system. As I mentioned, this is unique probably in American medicine, with one medical school, one boards of trustees that provides oversight in how we're providing care and doing research and training medical students, graduate students, and house staff. So we got a lot of work over the coming year to continue that integration. One of the things that are key in integrating a large healthcare system is emerging of cultures. That our model is that it's not a hub and spoke model in which the hub is here on the upper Manhattan, Mount Sinai campus. It's centers of excellence throughout our system. At BI Manhattan, at BI Brooklyn, at Roosevelt, at St. Luke's, and Mount Sinai Hospital. So we'll continue that work over the next year, and here leadership is key in terms of making things work effectively. A major responsibility is to make sure that the quality of care, no matter where our patients receive that care, is the same at the highest level. Jeremy Bohl, our Chief Medical Officer, has taken that responsibility on. And here is the mission statement, that we intend to produce the safest care, the best outcomes, the highest satisfaction, and the best value of any healthcare system in the New York area. We're going to hold ourselves to that. And here are the 5-year goals that Jeremy has put together on some of the key domains related to healthcare quality. And our goal is to be number one in our region. It's a pretty competitive region. And to be in the top 10% in the United States in each of these areas. In terms of 2014 priorities as they relate to quality, it's to reduce avoidable readmissions, to reduce inpatient harm, and to improve risk-adjusted mortality, and to improve our scores on likely to recommend, meaning when patients get care at Mount Sinai, we want them to feel that this is the very, very best hospital system that they can get their care. Our faculty practice had a good year under the leadership of Mark Callahan and Mike Schaefer, now under also the leadership of Bert Dreyer, in an environment in which costs are being contained and there's enormous competition for patients. We continue to grow. In 2014, year to date, we have grown at the level of 8%. We still have a respectable margin, although we are looking to reduce expenses. The patient experience is good, but not great, so we need to have more work to do there. We have a number of ongoing initiatives. Probably the most important is to bring a lot of the physicians that have now become part of our medical school and part of our healthcare system from around the former continuum hospitals into our faculty practice. And so we've started doing that over the last several weeks, and we'll be doing that over the course of 2015. The ultimate outcome is that we will have the largest faculty practice associated with the medical school of any medical school in the United States. We'll be expanding a variety of clinical programs, including urgent care, non-cancer infusions, lots of focus on patient satisfaction. We'll be growing the space available to our doctors. These are some of the examples that are current initiatives. Most importantly is the new space that will be opening up on East 85th Street, which will be an expansion of about 34,000 square feet. And this just illustrates the growth in ambulatory encounters and outpatient visits year by year, and the annual receipts. And at Press Ganey, we're at 55%, and our goal, as I mentioned before, is to be in the top 10% nationally. Financial results for the medical school. So, running a medical school financially is not a great business. Most medical schools are having, trouble in terms of running deficits. And our goal, and it's actually more than a goal, it's an imperative, is that we will not run a deficit. And, so that means we pay a lot of attention to growth, whether it's in our NIH funding, in our faculty practice, in philanthropy, and other initiatives. And we pay equal attention on controlling expenses. This year, we expect to have another good year in terms of the finances for the medical school, and that will be break even. Now, think of it this way, however. The medical school budget is about $2 billion. So it means if you're off by 1%, that's still $20 million deficit, and that's not good. So, we got to be right on in how we run, the medical school finances. And the way we were able to, I think, accomplish a good financial outcome is that, one, is we have good leaders. Two, we're data-driven. That literally every week we are looking at how we're doing financially, so that if there's a trend in one of our areas that are very important, whether it's a clinical area, a research area, training area, we're going to respond very quickly before things get out of hand. So I'm not going to go over our challenges in detail. I'm going to let you read that on the website. But it's all about being data-driven and being paying a lot of attention to productivity and being creative. One thing that is important, and in the beginning of my career and in the career of many of our physicians and scientists, in the beginning of our careers 20 or 30 years ago, it was okay to have time that was not backed by funding, that you would have time to think, or you would have time to teach that in a way that's not reimbursable. It doesn't work in today's healthcare climate. And unfortunately, that's the situation, so that when we do our budgets and we develop models for our faculty members, that every component of what is part of being a faculty member does need to have revenue associated with it. So if you're a scientist, if you want to be a scientist and you want to be 80% research, you're going to have to get funding. If you're going to teach, you're going to teach in our medical school and our graduate school, and we're going to reimburse you for the teaching, and it has to be excellent. If you're primarily a clinician, you're going to have to be productive so that we can support your salary. So it's transparent, it's productivity based, and that's been the basis of us being successful going forward. So let me end by reminding all of you that we have another Sinai Innovations Conference coming up in November. I think it's going to be another great conference. Here are some of the keynote speakers: Eric Topol from Scripps, Jun Wang from BGI, Miguel Nicolelis from Duke, who's been a major scientist in developing brain-machine interfaces, Andrew Conrad from Google X, who we're talking to about collaboration, Shirley Jackson, head of RPI, and Benedetta Piantella, who's co-founder of the T4D lab. So please, mark your calendars, November 18th and 19th, and let's remember our mission. We're all in this together, and that is to advance medicine through unrivaled education, research, and clinical care to provide exceptional experiences and outcomes to our patients locally and around the globe. Thank you very much. Now let's get on with the good part. I'm going to start the awarding of the endowed chairs. And our first recipient is Dr. Judith Aberg, the Dr. George Baer Professor of Clinical Medicine. Presenting to Dr. Aberg is Dr. Barbara Murphy, the Rosenberg Professor of Medicine and System Chair of the Bronfman Department of Medicine. Barbara.
It's my pleasure to introduce the recipient of the George Baer Professor of Clinical Medicine, Dr. Judith Aberg. Dr. Aberg is a dedicated, nationally and internationally known HIV researcher. She's a highly published clinical investigator and has served on numerous national and international committees. She is currently a member of the Board of Directors of the HIV Medicine Association, the preeminent professional organization of physicians that performs clinical research and provides clinical care to people with HIV. Dr. Aberg's expertise in HIV has made her a leader in developing the concepts and practices that serve as the basis for the now widely accepted principles of primary care for people living with HIV in the United States. We are extremely fortunate to have recruited Dr. Aberg to Mount Sinai as Chief of the Division of Infectious Diseases. In the short amount of time that she's been here, she has already had tremendous impact on our HIV program and in the integration of HIV services throughout the Mount Sinai healthcare system. Her other area of expertise, and one which has been most recently put to use, is in infection control. When Mount Sinai had a suspected case of Ebola, Dr. Aberg seamlessly orchestrated the management of the patient's care and of our faculty and staff's response. We're privileged to have her here at Mount Sinai, and she's extremely deserving of the honor she's receiving this evening. Congratulations.
I'm deeply humbled and honored to be receiving this award. I'd like to express my sincere gratitude to Dean Charney, Mr. May, the boards of trustees, and Dr. Murphy for this great honor, and also to the family and friends of Dr. George Baer, who this professorship is in his name. I'm fortunate to have been surrounded by supporting friends and family who share my love for serving the underserved. At a young age, my mother taught me the importance of being kind and to smile at the homeless because one never knows their circumstance. She taught us to engage, not run from any difficult tasks. As my namesake, I've committed my career to not only providing care to the disenfranchised population, but also advocating for services to those with HIV infection and promoting development of comprehensive research opportunities for our patients and for our faculty. I truly appreciate your trust and confidence in my abilities and look forward to many years of success and collaboration. Thank you so much.
Our next recipient is Dr. James Lawrence Michael Ferrara, Ward Coleman Chair in Cancer Medicine. Presenting to Dr. Ferrara is Dr. Ronald Hoffman, the Albert A. and Vera G. List Professor of Medicine.
Thank you. Dr. James L.M. Ferrara, a.k.a. Jamie, received his MD degree from Georgetown University's School of Medicine and a Doctor of Science degree from Oxford University in the United Kingdom. Dr. Ferrara completed his clinical training in pediatrics at the Children's Hospital at the Harvard Medical School. He then pursued and completed a postdoctoral fellowship with Dr. Stephen Burikoff at Harvard University, studying the biology of acute and chronic versus host disease, which occurs as a complication of allogeneic stem cell transplantation. As you all realize, Dr. Burikoff is the director of the Tisch Cancer Institute presently. Dr. Ferrara was subsequently recruited as director of the combined adult and pediatric bone marrow transplant program and the Ruth Hine Endowed Professor of Oncology at the University of Michigan, from which we were able to recruit him. He has been elected to the American Society of Clinical Investigation and the American Association of Physicians, which are the most prestigious organizations for professors of internal medicine. In 2012, he was a Nobel lecturer at the Karolinska Institute in Stockholm, Sweden. Jamie has published over 168 peer-reviewed articles and made numerous contributions to our understanding of acute and graft versus host disease, which is a major barrier to many patients with blood cancers and genetic diseases being cured with stem cell transplantation. Given Jamie's contributions to the field of medical research, we are pleased to award him the Ward Coleman Chair in Cancer Medicine. Congratulations.
Thank you, Professor Hoffman. Receiving this citation from a former president of the American Society of Hematology is a special honor. I'd like to thank Mr. and Mrs. Maurice Spanbach, who are trustees of the Ward Coleman Estate, for the distinct privilege of this endowed professorship. I never met Mrs. Coleman, but I share with her a conviction that working together at Mount Sinai, we can accelerate the cure for cancer and for blood cancers in particular. And if the trustees could also manage to sprinkle a little of Mrs. Coleman's longevity on the professorship, that would be awesome. Second, I'd like to thank Stephen Burikoff, the director of the Tisch Cancer Institute. I took my first faltering steps as an immunologist in Stephen's laboratory when it took me more than a year to get a single experiment to repeat. But we love Stephen because he believed in us before we could believe in ourselves. And now he has created a palpable energy and momentum in the Institute that will help us all in our common effort to conquer cancer. Next, I'd like to thank Dean Charney. I remember clearly waiting to meet the dean for the first time only 9 months ago, wondering what the Lord of the Dark Tower on Central Park would look like. Would he wear black armor, just like the building? But when the door opened, there was no armor, black, shining, or otherwise. Just a plaid shirt, suspenders, and a pair of Dwayne Johnson-sized biceps that convinced me I was talking to the strongest medical school dean in America. I decided I wanted to join his faculty, and lucky for me, so did he. Finally, I would like to thank my family for their continuing love and support. My sons Andrew, David, and Michael, and especially my beautiful and amazingly patient wife, Flora, who for 33 years has put up with me, and without whom I would not be standing here today. Thank you all for coming to celebrate with us.
I thought he was going to say I was the smartest dean in America. But I'll take the other one. Our third recipient is Dr. Percio S. Gulko, Lillian and Henry M. Stratton Professor of Medicine and Rheumatology. Presenting to Dr. Gulko is Dr. Barbara Murphy.
So it's my pleasure to introduce the recipient of the Lillian and Henry M. Stratton Professor of Medicine for Rheumatology, Dr. Percio Gulko. Dr. Gulko is a nationally and internationally recognized physician who is a leader in rheumatoid arthritis, arthritis genetics, and inflammation research. His work in his lab has focused on the identification and characterization of new genes implicated in the regulation of disease severity and joint damage in rheumatoid arthritis. He's received numerous grants from the NIH, given lectures both nationally and internationally, all of which are outlined in your book today, has published in leading peer-reviewed journals, and has served on editorial boards such as Genes and Immunity and Physiological Genomics. In addition to his talents as a researcher, Dr. Gulko is a highly experienced rheumatologist whose patient care, commitment to teaching of fellows, residents, and students, and pursuit of scholarly research is exemplary. In the short time that he's joined us at Mount Sinai, he has demonstrated to himself to be a highly enthusiastic leader, initiating new collaborative programs, both research and clinical. He's eagerly taken on the challenge of integrating rheumatology care throughout the Mount Sinai healthcare system and developed collaborations with several of the other institutes. We are fortunate to recruit Dr. Gulko as Chief of the Division of Rheumatology for the Mount Sinai healthcare system, and he is most deserving of this evening's award. So congratulations. Thank you.
Good evening. I wish to thank the Stratton family and foundation for creating the Lillian and Henry M. Stratton Endowed Professorship of Medicine in Rheumatology, and for honoring me with such a distinction. I take this honor very seriously and intend to live up to Dr. and Mrs. Stratton's expectation and their dedication to developing excellent science and new discoveries that will hopefully contribute to improve the life of patients with autoimmune and inflammatory and rheumatic diseases. I also wish to thank Dean Charney and Dr. Barbara Murphy for bringing me here to Mount Sinai. I'm definitely loving every minute since I joined this amazing institution in April. And finally, I wish to thank my wife and my 5-year-old twins, Noah and Tanya, for their love and support. Unfortunately, my daughter had a high fever, yes, and so she was still sick at home and they couldn't make it today. But I hope they're watching on video with the webcast. So thank you very much.
Our next recipient is Dr. Benhur Lee, Ward Coleman Chair in Microbiology. Presenting to Dr. Lee is Dr. Peter Palesi, Horace W. Goldsmith Professor of Medicine and Chair of the Department of Microbiology.
Benhur Lee, born and raised in Singapore, got his MD degree from Yale University. His postdoctoral and clinical training were completed at another Ivy League at UPenn. Afterwards, he moved on to UCLA, where he became a full professor in barely 10 years and found also the time to become a board-certified clinical pathologist and to see patients as an attending physician. Dr. Lee is a virologist with varied research interests who believes in multidisciplinary approaches, applying numerous techniques, and he is interested in a very broad spectrum of different viruses. In the landmark piece of work he published in Nature, he discovered the cellular receptor for Nipah viruses. And Nipah virus is a highly pathogenic agent and capable of causing encephalitis with high mortality. It is actually listed by the CDC as a potential agent of bioterrorism. In another groundbreaking study, He published in PNAS and identified and characterized a small molecular weight compound, which is capable of blocking entry of all enveloped viruses tested so far, and that includes HIV, influenza viruses, and many other viruses. His most recent work concerns the emergence of Nipah virus in Africa, a virus previously known to have really caused serious infections in Malaysia and Asia, but not really in Africa. His crucial paper about Nipah viruses in Africa was just accepted in Nature Communications, and it should be of great interest in light of the outbreaks of Ebola virus most recently. Congratulations.
Thank you. I hope that doesn't break the Nature's news embargo if this is a public environment. If it is, it's your fault. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dean Charney, for this great honor. Thank you, I have to say, Mr. and Mrs. Maurice Spanbach, who are the trustees of the Watt Coleman Estate, for this incredible and precious opportunity. And thank you, Dr. Palese, for recruiting me to Mount Sinai in the first place. I'm truly inspired by your leadership and gratified by the warm collegiality I've experienced since my arrival. But most of all, I'm invigorated by the quality of science at this institution. UCLA is no second fiddle either, but this is truly something different. I'm an MD by training, but a scientist by choice. When I started my scientific career, the ability to pursue one's scientific passion was only limited by one's imagination. Sadly, the picture is different today. The biomedical research enterprise, as we have heard, is under siege after a decade of flat NIH budgets. While we all have to adapt, I really mourn the loss of creativity in science that comes with this siege mentality. So I work on emerging and viral infectious diseases, where we often study deadly infections caused by exotic viruses in faraway places, in the hope that we can prevent them from becoming common infections in nearby places. But we've come to realize that we'll never have enough resources, no matter how clever we are, to make a drug or vaccine for every virus that comes along. So can we dream to develop broad-spectrum antiviral therapies or vaccines so that we can efficiently combat the increasing number of viral diseases? Well, thanks to this Watt Coleman professorship and the inspiration of my colleagues here, I can continue working on making that dream become a reality. And last but not least, I also want to thank Keith Adams, my partner in life, who I've dragged across up and down the coast and across the country, who understand my passion and makes everything I do much more meaningful. Thank you.
Our next recipient is Dr. Miriam Merad, who's being awarded the Mount Sinai Professorship in Cancer Immunology. Presenting to Dr. Merad is Dr. Ramon Parsons, Ward Coleman Chair in Cancer Research and Chair of the Department of Oncological Sciences.
It is a great pleasure to introduce Dr. Miriam Merad as the Mount Sinai Chair in Cancer Immunology in the Departments of Oncological Sciences and the Department of Medicine, Division of Hematology and Oncology. Dr. Merad received her MD from University of Algiers and her training in hematology and oncology at the University of Paris-Sète. She then received her PhD in immunology, which was followed by postdoctoral training at Stanford University in California. Since joining our faculty as an assistant professor, she has been appointed full professor in 2010 and is the co-leader of the Cancer Immunology program in the Tisch Cancer Institute. In 2010, she also became the director of the Mount Sinai Human Immune Monitoring Center, dedicated to understanding the contribution of inflammation to human disease. She has received national recognition for her work as an invited speaker, meeting organizer, and elected to the American Society for Clinical Investigation in 2012. She is committed to graduate student and postdoc education and faculty mentorship. She is an international leader in the study of macrophages and dendritic cells and their role in different disease processes, including cancer. Her work is published in the leading journals. She's highly prolific and has a vibrant research program. She's a rising star. We are very pleased to give her this chair, and it is very well earned. Congratulations.
So I would like to thank Dean Charney and the Board of Trustees for this great honor. This award will allow me, I think, to dedicate more time and more funding to understanding the contribution of inflammation to human disease, and especially cancer, and to building this multi-scale platform for understanding understanding the human immune system, and this platform that we call the Human Immune Monitoring Center, which we built with the help of the Dean a few years ago. I'd like to thank those that contributed to my scientific growth over the years, because no achievement in science and all achievement in science are incremental. And in particular, I would like to thank Dean Charney for his vibrant and dynamic vision of the school and for his support of immunology. I'd like to thank my chairs, Savio Wu, Stu Aronson, and Ramon Parsons for their support. I'd like to thank Steven Burakov for building a very vibrant cancer immunology floor on Health Fifth. I would like to thank Sergio Lira for his dedication to building a premier human immunology institute. I would like to thank my laboratory and my research lab, to whom I dedicate this award today. I would like to thank you for devotion to science, for all the fun that you provide. It's because of you that I'm here today. So thank you. I would like to thank my colleagues, and I'm going to name only few of them, and only those who are here today. So in particularly Brian Brown, Hugh Simpson, Adolfo Garcia Sastre, and Sandy Mazer for all the intellectual stimulation you provide. I would like to thank my husband and partner, Bashir Tauli, for encouraging me to build a research laboratory in the midst of a very adverse NIH climate. So thank you. I'd like to thank him for his patience and his inspiring devotion to academia. And I would like to thank my two boys for the joys, despite the headache they have provided over the years. Thank you.
Our sixth recipient is Dr. Demetrius Pertsemlidis, Bradley H. Jack Professor of Surgery. Presented to Dr. Pertsemlidis is Dr. Michael Marin, Julius Jacobson Professor and Chair in Vascular Surgery and the System Chair of Surgery for our healthcare system. Dr. Marin?
I don't know why they say I'm such a controlling chairman. Dean Charney, distinguished new professors, endowed professors, it's a pleasure today to introduce to you the first Bradley H. Jack Professor of Surgery at the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai. Mount Sinai Hospital, our school, our health system, is commonly defined by three important goals: clinical excellence, unique science and research, and outstanding medical education. However, if we look closely, we can define ourselves by another important feature: our history. Over and over we hear the Mount Sinai Hospital, a hospital for immigrant Jews who helped physicians practice in places where they would not have been accepted. Mount Sinai Hospital, the discoverer of Crohn's disease. Mount Sinai Hospital, the identifier of novel genes and disease, and so on. We love our history, and we love our stories, and they go on and on. Allow me to tell you another story about Mount Sinai, for in this story, we really define the history of our medical center and history of our institution. Born in the northern city of Kavala, Dr. Pertsemlidis began his young life as a highly inquisitive young man with a joy for learning and an early desire to become a doctor. That all changed in the winter of 1941 when the Bulgarians invaded from the north and the German army invaded from the south. Occupation suddenly became not just a word, but a way of life. With schools permanently closed and food scarce, the young Pertsemlidis educated himself and learned to survive. By learning to speak German in a matter of weeks, he made himself indispensable to the non-Greek speaking occupying forces. When the Second World War finally ended, Dr. Pertsemlidis managed to find his way home through war-torn Germany, back to Kavala, with the dream of medical science still clear in his mind. Moving rapidly through what was left of high school, he graduated #1 in his class and went on to join the first-year class of the prestigious Thessaloniki Medical School in Greece. Unfortunately, war would not stop following Demetrius Pertsemlidis. Drafted into the Greek army, he left medical school and was soon off to fight shoulder to shoulder with the United States forces in Korea. Rising to the rank of lieutenant, he fought bravely in many important battles, notably the famed Battle of Pork Chop Hill. Before his discharge from the service, he was awarded the United States Bronze Star for bravery in combat, the United Nations Medal of Honor, and the Greek War Cross. In a turn of fate, Dr. Pertsemlidis was admitted to the University of Hamburg and the School of Medicine to finish his medical studies. In Hamburg, he realized two important dreams. First, a degree in medicine, graduating top in his class in Hamburg, and second, the choice meeting of his wife of 53 years, who convinced the young Pertsemlidis that the streets of New York were paved in gold. He arrived in America and began surgical training at the Mount Sinai Hospital in 1961. After completing 4 years of surgical training, he was off to the Rockefeller University as a Fulbright scholar, where he began a series of original experiments that helped define how the human liver processes chemicals, and thereby initiating the field of bile acid research, a true pioneer in this entity. Returning back to Mount Sinai, he established an NIH-funded laboratory for bile acid research on the 25th floor of the then brand new, and trust me, shiny Annenberg building. Working diligently as an investigator, a clinical surgeon, he rapidly built an enormous reputation for complex liver and pancreatic surgery. Dr. Pertsemlidis' subsequent clinical work, which included more than 60 publications and lectures around the world, helped to define a completely new surgical field, endocrine surgery. His textbook entitled Endocrine Surgery is one of the first of its kind and remains the Bible in this field. His Mount Sinai career now spans over 50 years, and now we're on to the next chapter. Finally, in a recent frank conversation with the extremely modest Professor Pertsemlidis, he said, and I quote, "I never expected to be treated with such warmth, equality, and dignity when I came to America. After all, I was only a foreigner. Mount Sinai delivered that equality, delivered that dignity." Ladies and gentlemen, just another great Mount Sinai story and great Mount Sinai physician. I introduce to you the first Bradley Jack Professor of Surgery at the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai, Demetrius Pertsemlidis.
I was told to speak about 90 seconds, but none of the previous speakers complied with that. So, Vinciani, thank you. Dr. Marin actually was condensed my biography into what he essentially came up with the fact that my childhood was nothing but a real odyssey. When I was taken from Greece to Germany and became a displaced person, I saw the face of evil. I also saw the humanity and philanthropy of a German officer who saved my life by saving me and avoiding the transportation to a concentration camp called Oranienburg. Now, today, we celebrate a different kind of philanthropy. It's expressed by the generosity and kindness of Mr. Jack and his wife Lara to create my chair. I had the privilege of performing his 2 operations in a span of about 17 years. But Bradley Jack did never forget the gift of life given by surgery. He is an exceedingly friendly man, full of energy and enthusiasm, and his philanthropy goes far beyond the tri-state area. Mount Sinai accepted me in 1961, even though my last name resembled inflammatory disease. And they gave me everything that I never asked for: fairness, equity, and the freedom to pursue my academic ambitions. As I have done it for many years, I'll continue to preserve Mount Sinai legacies. I'll continue to teach the best education and professionalism to our students and residents, and hopefully I'll contribute to Mount Sinai's vision. Thank you.
Our next recipient is Dr. Pamela Sklar, being awarded a Mount Sinai professorship in psychiatric genomics. And it is my pleasure to describe Dr. Sklar's career. We are privileged to have a professor, researcher, and physician of Dr. Pamela Sklar's caliber at Mount Sinai. A professor of psychiatry, neuroscience, and genetics and genomic sciences. She is also the founding chief of the Division of Psychiatric Genomics at our School of Medicine. Dr. Sklar's research has been wonderfully productive. In fact, she is certainly one of the leading investigations of the genetic basis of psychiatric disease in the world. She has made breakthrough discoveries that have begun to identify the genetic risk factors underlying some of mankind's most serious diseases, schizophrenia and bipolar disease. Most importantly, her genetic findings have the potential to lead to new therapeutic interventions for these poorly understood but very serious diseases. Dr. Sklar plays a major international role in collaborative genetic studies in bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. This includes her work through the Systematic Treatment Enhancement Program for Bipolar Disorder, having a major leadership role in the International Schizophrenia Consortium, the International Cohort Collection for Bipolar Disorder, and the Psychiatric Genome Consortium. It reflects her inspiring leadership that she has these major leadership roles in organizing studies that involve literally hundreds of thousands of patients with psychiatric disorders. She is also a spectacular mentor. I know that firsthand. My son is in her lab. She has authored more than 125 peer-reviewed publications and recently received one of medicine's major honors, and that is election to the prestigious Institute of Medicine of the National Academy of Sciences. It is an honor both personally and professionally to name Pamela Sklar as a Mount Sinai professor in psychiatric genomics.
So first and foremost, what I'd really like to do is to thank the boards of trustees of Mount Sinai for this honor. It's a privilege to work here at Mount Sinai. I arrived in 2011 to establish our first division of psychiatric genomics. It's become quite an interdisciplinary division. We have now students, postdocs, faculty, researchers, physicians, all of whom can work together on cutting-edge problems in research both here at Mount Sinai and with collaborators worldwide. I'm indebted to our dean, Dr. Charney, and to the CEO of our institution, Dr. Davis, both of whom have fostered an environment of both excellence and creativity and critically understand the importance of research into mental illness. I also want to give a special thanks to Eric Nestler, who patiently sang the praises of Mount Sinai for quite a while until he finally convinced me to move to New York. This honor will allow me and our division to continue its mission, which is to make discoveries about the genetics of psychiatric disease, and then also to apply them to the everyday treatment of patients with mental illness. Of course, none of this could be done without my family. My husband Andy and my children Michael and Isabel. They fill my heart with love, they fill my home with love, and are understanding and supportive of all the crazy hours and the crazy things that you have to do to be a scientist. I'm also very grateful to my in-laws, Ellen and Len Chess, who are here today, who've pitched in numerous times over the last 20 years as we went through this odyssey. And finally, in closing, I'd like to say that to all of you whom I've already interacted with and to those of you who I will interact with in the future, I'm really deeply grateful for the warm welcome that I've received here at Mount Sinai. Thank you.
Our next recipient is Dr. Ash Tewari, Kung Young Kim Chair in Urology. Will Dr. Tewari come up? And it's also my honor to introduce you to him. When we recruited Dr. Tewari as system chair of the Milton and Carol Petrie Department of Urology, we were thrilled to bring on board one of the world's outstanding urologic surgeons. And already in the first few months in his tenure, he has begun to build one of the nation's best urology departments. He standardized the advanced robotic technique of prostatectomy, which revolutionized prostate cancer surgery. Literally thousands and tens of thousands of patients have benefited from this treatment, which spare the nerves that control bowel, urinary, and sexual function. Dr. Tewari is also an active researcher who is striving to unlock the genomic roots of prostate cancer and developing innovative imaging techniques to pinpoint biomarkers that will allow us to make the diagnosis earlier and when it's more curative. He has been honored for many of his achievements, most recently having received the 2012 Gold Cystoscope Award from the American Urological Association. I'm just wondering what a gold cystoscope is all about. I'm sure it's important. An international expert in his field, he has written more than 250 peer-reviewed journal articles and recently published a textbook, Robotics in Urological Surgery. He serves on the editorial board of the Gold Journal of Urology, the BGU International, and reviews for many different journals, and is currently the associate editor of the AUA News, the official news magazine of the American Urological Association. It is a great pleasure to introduce to you Ash Tewari.
Few moments are just summed up by one word, and that is thank you. Today is my opportunity to thank many people who are responsible for why I'm standing here. Starting with Dr. Kim's family, in whose honor this award is given. And lucky we are that Mrs. Kim and his son, Dr. Kim, both are here. Ironic as it may be, 30 years before I came to United States, Dr. Kim was doing the same journey coming from Asia to United States. He came and joined Department of Urology. He trained here and went on and did great things. I got lucky to be in that role 30 years later. And this endowment is going to help me in focusing not just on the clinical care, but also finding some key answers for the pain and suffering which patients with prostate cancer have been asking me to solve. My research will benefit the research which starts from the bedside, goes to the bench, and comes back to the bedside sooner than later. I want to thank the leadership. I want to thank Dean Charney especially, the members of the board, and my co-chairs. I have been here just for the last 8-9 months, and they have really taken care of me. I have to thank my faculty who do amazing things to make this department a success, my team members, my patients who have trusted me with these questions, and finally my wife and my 2 children. My wife happens to be here, Mamta, who has been here for the last 26 years. Thank you.
Our 9th recipient is Dr. George J. Todd, Alfred and Florence Gross Professor of Surgery, and presenting to Dr. Todd is Dr. Michael Marin.
Dr. Tewari, I saw a twinkle in the dean's eye when he mentioned that gold scope. I would lock it up if I was you. Dean Charney, it is a pleasure and an honor to introduce to you today the Alfred and Florence Gross Professor of Surgery at the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai, Dr. George J. Todd. Professor Todd graduated first in his class from the Archbishop Malloy High School in Queens, making him truly a New Yorker by breed. An all-star track athlete, he went on to be first in class at Iona College, and not surprisingly, was #1 at Penn State School of Medicine. He completed his surgical training at Columbia Presbyterian Medical Center and joined their staff. Professor Todd is renowned for his investigative originality, exceptional teaching abilities, and legendary surgical skills. Laboratory investigations by Dr. Todd helped define the standards for modern cardioplegia in open-heart surgery. The use of cardioplegia medications during open-heart surgery help protect the heart while valves are repaired and bypasses are installed. Dr. Todd's landmark article in Circulation remains the foundation for how we do heart preservation for all bypass pump cardiac surgery. As an educator, he has personally trained over 200 surgeons, many of whom have gone on to important leadership roles around the country, not just in the field of surgery, but also in television. Dr. Todd personally trained Dr. Mehmet Oz in surgery, but he takes no credit for Dr. Oz's other unique and interesting medical ideas. As chairman of the Department of Surgery at St. Luke's Roosevelt Hospital Medical Center for the past 12 years, he's built an outstanding residency surgery training program. Dr. Todd's most remarkable contributions to surgery occur in the operating room, Working initially with Dr. Arthur Voorhees, the inventor of the first human artificial arterial replacement, Dr. Todd has since become one of the most respected and sought-after surgeons in the country. When Darryl Strawberry, of New York Yankee fame, was diagnosed with a life-ending obstructing cancer of the colon in the middle of one of his best Yankee seasons, it was Dr. Todd who operated upon him and saved his life. On October 1st, 2 days from today, it'll be 16 years since that surgery, and Mr. Strawberry is alive and well. When David Cone, the star pitcher for the New York Yankees, discovered in the beginning of the 1996 season that he faced amputation of his pitching arm due to a rare arterial aneurysm, who did they seek for consultation? They should have come to me, but that's a separate conversation. Dr. Todd removed the aneurysm, saved Cone's arm from amputation, and had him pitching 100-mile-an-hour fastballs in 4 months, such that the Yankees went on to win the World Series with Cone pitching that year, 1996, again in 1998, again in 1999, and again in 2000. How many vascular reconstructions last that long in anybody's hands? The list is endless. I can reliably say that there are more than 25 doctors out in the audience here today that owe their own life or the life of their family member to Dr. Todd's surgical skills. Dr. Todd's outstanding medical and scholastic accomplishments define a man of extraordinary character and great technical skill. A less commonly known achievement has been the plight of Dr. Todd and his wife of 42 years, Alice, to raise national awareness and money to combat autism. Working as a member of the board of directors of the Center for Discovery in Harris, New York, they have made a difference. Their very personal family experience battling this challenging problem that impacts not just the child, but their entire family has helped improve the lives of so many people. Dean Charney, distinguished new professors, it's a pleasure to introduce you today the Gross Family Professor of Surgery, Dr. George Todd.
Thank you, Dr. Marin. It is an extraordinary honor to be named the Alfred and Florence Gross Professor of Surgery. I am grateful to the leadership of the Mount Sinai Health System. Including a surgeon from the Mount Sinai Roosevelt campus as an endowed professor is a clear message that the clinical, administrative, and board leadership of this great healthcare system remains fully committed to what was promised 1 year ago. That is a full integration of all the components of the system into a cohesive unit that will prepare us for the challenges facing healthcare in our country. I wish to take this opportunity to gratefully acknowledge the system-wide surgical leadership of my former student, Dr. Michael Marin. He forgot to mention that part. Even though he is currently my boss, he was in fact my student, of which I am very proud. And there are a lot of other surgeons in the audience that I could point out too. I can't start naming them because I'll leave some out, but many of the great surgeons in this audience I had the pleasure to work with years ago. And that's one of the most fulfilling parts of getting old. So I wish to acknowledge Dr. Marin's leadership. During this past year, his counsel and guidance have truly advanced the surgical programs throughout the various campuses of the system in a very meaningful way. I am delighted that my family is able to be here with me this evening. I thank them all for their love and support. Family is one of the great gifts bestowed upon the fortunate among us. In this regard, I have been blessed beyond anything I deserve or could have hoped to design. Finally, I wish to gratefully acknowledge the generosity of the Alfred and Florence Gross family. I pledge to them that I will strive to teach our medical students and residents, care for our current patients, and carefully evaluate therapies for our future patients with integrity and professionalism, empathy, and a consistent excellence that is befitting their distinguished family. Thank you very much.
Our final recipient is Dr. James C. Tsai, Delafield Rogers Professor of Ophthalmology. We were extremely pleased to welcome Dr. Tsai to Mount Sinai earlier this year. Comes to us from Yale, where he was chairman of ophthalmology. We recruited him not only as a proven healthcare leader to lead our Department of Ophthalmology, but also to take on the role as the new president of the New York Eye and Ear Infirmary of Mount Sinai. We also gained a world-renowned expert in the treatment of glaucoma. Dr. Tsai has an impressive history of professional leadership, having served as a consultant to the ophthalmic devices panel of the Food and Drug Administration. He's a member of the Medicare Evidence Development Coverage Advisory Committee, and he now chairs the Medical Advisory Board of the National Glaucoma Foundation. He has worked very hard to advance education in the field of eye care as the current chair of the Glaucoma Subcommittee of the National Eye Health Education Program at the NIH. And he's currently the chair of the American Academy of Ophthalmology's Global Ophthalmic News and Education Network Advisory Board. He's a great scientist. He's a prolific author of scientific chapters, articles, and textbooks, including the third edition of the Oxford American Handbook of Ophthalmology and Medical Management of Glaucoma. He's received numerous awards and honors, including the Senior Achievement Award from the American Academy of Ophthalmology, a Visionary Award from Fight for Sight, and the Doheny Society of Scholars Medallion. It's a pleasure to welcome Dr. Tsai to take leadership of the New York Eye and Ear Infirmary and our Department of Ophthalmology. Congratulations.
I am greatly honored today to receive the Delafield Rogers Professorship in Ophthalmology, thereby acknowledging the accomplishments and legacies of Drs. Edward Delafield and John Kearney Rogers, the founders of the New York Eye and Ear Infirmary of Mount Sinai. After enrolling in the ophthalmic training program at the Royal London Ophthalmic Hospital, which is today known as Moorfields Eye Hospital, Delafield and Rogers returned to New York City to found the first and longest operating specialty hospital in America in 1820. Being a Moorfields alumnus myself, having completed a one-year glaucoma fellowship there in the mid-1990s, I am delighted to be part of the leadership of an institution as internationally renowned as the New York Eye and Ear Infirmary of Mount Sinai. With its recent integration into the Mount Sinai Health System and the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai, New York Eye and Ear will continue to have a bright future as a leading center of excellence in ophthalmology and otolaryngology. I want to personally thank Dean Dennis Charney, Dr. Ken Davis, Mr. Peter May, and the boards of trustees of Mount Sinai Health System for conferring upon me this professorship. Finally, I would like to thank my lovely wife, Tracy, my daughters, Jessica and Emily Ann, my family, including my cousins Stella and Jean, who are here today, my friends, my mentors, and colleagues for all their support throughout the years. Thank you.
Convocation gives us an opportunity not only to recognize the outstanding physicians and scientists on the dais today, but also the many accomplishments of our faculty during the past academic year. Please take a look at the convocation program that lists the international, national, and regional honors and awards of many of our faculty. Also listed are those faculty that joined the tenured and/or professional ranks during the past year. Please join me in applauding the accomplishments of our newly endowed chairs and of our faculty over the past year.